Hey everyone, it is Kylie here. So here for another Friday live. Just gonna have my juice quickly. I love this juice. It makes me have lots of energy and there's lots of good stuff in here. So excuse me, I haven't had it yet this morning. It's been a bit of a crazy morning. My whole family has osteopathy appointments today and we just love it, but today was like the first day that we could go in and see, so it's been driving back and forth for various family members. So I haven't been able to have my morning juice, which I need in the mornings to kind of get my energy up. Okay, so today I wanted to, hi Winnie. So today I wanted to chat a little bit about crawling, because that was one of the questions that I got in terms of topics that you would want me to chat about today. And crawling is definitely something that I hear a lot about from the mamas that I work with, and so I think it's a great topic. So first of all, crawling on hands and knees is the developmental kind of milestone age range for that is anywhere from between 7 to 10-ish month mark. But that being said, if your baby crawls early or a little bit late, so even at the 11-month mark, there's nothing to worry about. It's just a guide, and it really depends on a lot of different things. It depends on how much floor time they've been getting, and so how much time they've been getting to push and pull and reach and start to lengthen and strengthen their muscles, especially their muscles in the back, so that these can get nice and strong, but also just exploring their bodies on the floor. And then it also depends a little bit on the size of your baby. So if you have a bigger baby, or if you have a baby that has a bigger head, or you have a chubbier baby, or you have a baby that's really just like sturdy, like both my children they're both actually quite slim and slender, but they're heavy, like they're very muscular. And so the weight does have a little bit to do also, just because they have to contend with a little bit more weight in terms of moving their bodies, in terms of figuring out where their bodies are, and getting into the different positions. So crawling can happen, again, anywhere from about 7 to 10-ish month mark. And hands and knees crawling is going to be on the later end of that. So I wanted to go into some of the crawling kind of mini milestones that I like to talk a lot about, because they're really great little indicators that baby is moving in the right direction towards the hands and knees crawling. So let me just move my camera back a little bit. All right. Okay. So essentially what happens is that babies will often start to actually push themselves back with their hands, okay? So they do this little pushing back of their hands, because their hands are one of the first things that they really start to realize that they have when they're little. So they get the hands to the mouth and they're like, oh, this is really cool. So they start to push back with their hands. Then they might start to do this little pulling forward with like an army crawl. It could be with one hand, it could be with both hands, it could be with one hand and one leg. They'll sometimes do that. Then oftentimes you'll see baby and they're doing this like 360 kind of degree, or they're really just, they figured out how to push and pull with one side of their body, and so they're going around in a little bit of a circle. Then after that, oftentimes babies will try to get into this hands and knees position. They might kind of do these weird little down dog positions as they're learning how to get into that. And then they get into the hands and knees, and they often start doing a little bit of a rocking, and then they fall. And then they rock, and then they fall. And then they might get up and rock, and then fall, and then crawl forward. They might get up and rock and just stay there. And then eventually comes the hands and knees crawling, okay? And so one of the biggest things in terms of kind of encouraging your baby to crawl is to give them lots and lots of floor time and time on the floor to explore, but really time to push and pull and reach so that they can start learning about their bodies, so they can start learning how everything works together, so that they can start building the strength of the muscles, so that they can start building all of the muscles in their back here, which are going to support their spinal curves, which essentially are going to help them to get into the crawling position and then ultimately into the vertical position and support their body and their postural control in those positions. So floor play really is the number one way to promote crawling. Now, if you have a child who is a little bit on the later end, hasn't really demonstrated a lot of these different crawling mini milestones, as I call them, another way to practice crawling is to actually practice crawling upstairs, because crawling upstairs is going to give them very similar benefits as crawling on hands and knees. However, they don't have to have the same kind of muscular strength to crawl up the stairs. They can kind of get the same bilateral coordination going without necessarily having to have the skill yet of crawling on their hands and knees. So that's going to be really great for core strengthening, arm strengthening, also that bilateral coordination. Obviously with help, they're not going to be able to do it by themselves, so they're going to have to support them and to facilitate that movement, but crawling up the stairs is a great way to start building in some of that bilateral coordination and the reciprocity of the two sides working together. So that's a really great way as well. Now, if you have an older baby or even a toddler who did not crawl, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you get down on the floor with them and that you kind of set up your environment so that they can be enticed to crawl. So one of my favorite ways is actually getting a tunnel. So whether it's an IKEA tunnel or something off of Amazon, there's really only one way through the tunnel. Either you're pulling yourself forward on your belly, which is still one of the crawling milestones, or you're crawling on your hands and knees through the tunnel. Because crawling is a milestone you do not want to skip, okay? And unfortunately these days there's a lot of babies who are skipping crawling. A lot of that has to do with the fact that they just are not developing all of the muscles in their core, so the back and the front, because really we're putting babies a lot of times into these containers. They're spending a lot of the day on their backs, whether it's the bouncy seats or the car seats or the bumbo seats, which I hate, that will be another video, or even the jolly jumpers, even all of the exercisers, where literally they're not actually using any of these muscles. They're not getting that pushing and pulling and strengthening and lengthening that they get on the floor, and so they're not developing the proper muscles to get into that crawling position and then to start exploring in that way. But crawling has so many benefits that you miss out on when you go right from kind of lying on the ground to sitting up and then eventually standing and walking. So crawling, if you can see here, when I'm on my hands and knees, and all of the little mini crawling milestones do aspects of this, but really what we want is to get babies into that crawling on hands and knees when they're developmentally ready. So crawling on hands and knees has core strength that you're using in your front and also back. You're also getting really nice shoulder and arm strengthening. You're getting hand strengthening, all those little muscles in the hands, which is going to be really important for fine motor skills. You're also getting the bilateral coordination, which is the two sides of the body working together. And you're getting visual tracking skills. So you're getting near vision and far vision, near vision and far vision. So I really, really, really want you guys to get your babies crawling, and to promote that, really floor play is going to be the key. There's other ways also to start promoting a little bit, but really promoting them to learn where their feet are and to learn that they can use their feet to push. But floor play, it's the easiest. And please, 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 I know there's a lot of pediatricians out there still who are saying, oh, don't worry, crawling, oh, your baby didn't crawl, no big deal. But coming from a pediatric occupational therapy background, I know that in occupational therapy world, but also in the physical therapy world, crawling is such a huge, huge milestone, and it's so important for so many reasons. And a lot of the kids that I used to see in my therapy practice when I was still doing that, more kind of therapeutic work, a lot of them, even I was seeing them at 3, 4, 5 years of age, they were having difficulty sitting in their chair, they were having fine motor difficulties, handwriting, pencil grasp, they were also having just difficulty staying still, they were being impulsive. A lot of that has to do with the fact that they didn't crawl. They didn't get all of the nice strengthening and the postural support needed. They didn't get the fine motor skill support and the strengthening in their hands. They didn't get the vision. And so crawling is 100% a very important skill. I don't care if your child walks before they crawl. That's totally fine. Ideally, there's obviously a pattern. We want them to meet their milestones in a pattern. But hey, it happens that babies stand up and walk before they crawl. But I invite you then to get down on the floor, play like chase games, crawling chase games. Do make obstacle courses where they have to crawl under chairs, through the tunnel, over the couch cushions. All of that kind of stuff is really wonderful ways to start getting your kids crawling so that they can start to develop all of those muscles and all of those skills that I just talked about. So that is what I wanted to say in terms of crawling. Hugely important. Hello to everybody who is tuning in. I am loving all of this. If you have any questions, please post them below. And I'm going to just see who is saying, okay, Winnie says my baby is crawling already. Yay. How old is your baby? I'm not sure, but awesome. Maybe younger. I don't know. And that's the thing, right? Is that when babies all develop at slightly different times, right? The developmental kind of milestones, age ranges are there for a reason so that you have a bit of a guide. It's the same thing for sleep, wake windows, and all of that, right? It's a guide. Your baby is your baby. Your baby is unique, just like we're all unique, right? And so really tuning into your baby, and babies are going to develop slightly different times. They're going to sleep longer at slightly different times. So try not to compare, but just keeping in mind that you want to be seeing progression of skills week by week by week. It doesn't matter so much if your baby is like 9 months and not doing hands and knees crawling, because that's still potentially very normal. But at the same time, sometimes they do crawl on hands and knees by like 6, 7 months. It just depends on so many different factors. So don't compare, but just start watching your baby and comparing them to themselves. So like think to yourself, oh, am I seeing some of those mini crawling milestones? Am I seeing a progression in skills? Are they doing something a little bit different this week than they did last week? Those are all good signs, all right? And if you are worried about anything, please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to chat it through. For the most part, probably your babies are developing totally fine, and you just need a little bit of encouragement that they are fine and that you're going to trust your baby. But I can say 100%, get your babies on the floor, get that floor play in. It is going to do wonders for so much of their development. Lucy says, my baby started moving around on her side and I saw her push her bum up occasionally. Is that part of the crawling process? Yes. So sometimes moving around on her side, yeah, and pushing up her bum, exactly. So that is part of the crawling process, that kind of down dog type thing. So depending on where she is, if you've seen any of those other crawling mini milestones, it could be that she's looking to try to get, as she's exploring her body, to try to get into that hands and knees position. It could also be that she's exploring her body to get into the sitting position independently. So sitting, and I'll have to do another video on this, but sitting generally happens, baby is either on their back, on their tummy, and they roll to their side and push up, or baby pushes their bum up and back, okay? And so we actually do want to encourage babies to get into sitting on their own and not to put them into sitting before they can get in there on their own. I will do another video on that next week, because that is also another super important developmental kind of milestone that I would like to talk about. And just so that you know, so that I'm not leaving you hanging for next week, but independent sitting, so getting into a sitting position on their own, doesn't typically happen for babies until also around that like 8-ish to 10-ish month mark. Sometimes a little bit earlier, but I do not mean that you're putting baby into sitting and they're sitting there like without falling. I mean baby actually putting themselves into sitting on their own, and that's really their true vertical. That's when they have the correct postural control to maintain that position. So I'll leave that for next week. We'll talk about sitting next week. Okay, that's it. Bye for now, guys.